Hello, good morning. So yeah, I'm gonna tackle this subject matter, and this is a really difficult one. This is probably the most difficult one because it is trying to strike a delicate balance. And how do I get this point across without completely confusing everybody? So, okay. In the beginning, when I first started this protocol, everyone was flipping out about the symptoms / sickness / all that stuff. And so everyone was questioning the recipe, questioning the salt, questioning everything, fermentation, they were questioning it all. So then my government had, asked me, because I made all these different claims. And so the Ohio Attorney General asked me to prove how this drink is a probiotic. Because if it's a probiotic, then it's not going to do any harm. Okay, that's from the perspective of the government. Okay, so the Ohio Attorney General was responding to all the different concerns out there. And so they have their own panel of people in the health and wellness, in the medical industry, to then formulate the 10, 11 different questions they asked me. And one of them is, how do you prove this is a probiotic? Okay. So, and that was the only thing they really cared. They didn't care about, that's all they cared about was that with how this was a probiotic. They didn't ask, what are the nutritional components of the juice or anything. They just said, hey, explain to us how the Jilly juice is a probiotic. So, I was thinking about, the website. I got this from a fermentation website. And then somebody said to me, hey, why don't you get the juice tested? And I'm like, hey, it's a good idea. So I called up several different food labs. One of them was out in Columbus, Ohio. And I told them what I was looking for, what I was dealing with. And we were figuring out what kind of tests they were looking. The question was, prove this is a probiotic. So I said, okay, well, I'm not going to get any nutritional saying, how many vitamins and how many minerals and how many of this. The government just want to know, prove this is a probiotic. So what they did was they did the lactic acid test. Okay, so when I took the sample of the 3-day ferment and sent it off to the food lab, it cost me $100 to do that. Okay, so I sent them the sample. It came back. First, it was too numerous to count. They have to actually dilute the Jilly juice to then count how many colony-forming units of lactic acid, lactobacillus. And so finally they came back a week or so later and said, okay, we have finally counted, and this is the official report, there's 13 million colony-forming units of lactic acid. So there you go. There is a substantiation from the food lab, of which then I gave to my government. So my government has the results. They're in contact with the food lab, hey Chris, and they got the results that they were looking for. And then I didn't hear anything else. And then the only thing I heard back for as far as a response to because they asked me 10 questions and I gave them basically a whole dissertation. This is my first dissertation, really, when you think about it. No, it wasn't like super perfect, but it was me substantiating my claims that I wrote out to my government to then explain everything that I was doing and substantiating the best I could based upon the information I had at the time, everything that they were looking for. And so the only thing that they responded, the OAG never responded back to that 10-page or how many page paper I gave to them, but the Federal Trade Commission wanted to make sure that my advertising would not violate their advertising standards, their marketing standards. And so that was fine. I changed the wording in my advertising, and then nothing has been said since. Okay, so the juice is not poisonous. There's nothing poisonous in it. Pink Himalayan salt, lactic acid, micro and macronutrition from the cabbage and kale, and water. That's it. That's all in the juice. Okay? All right. So now that's been substantiated because it's not poisonous, or they would have said cease and desist to even talking about this or promoting this. Facebook would have killed me off or shut me down somewhere. They would have shut down my business site. They would shut down my groups. They would have shut down my Facebook page. Okay? So Facebook knows this juice is not poisonous. All right. So now that's established and everybody knows, at least everybody in the holistic world knows, or anyone that knows anything about fermentation, they know that fermentation isn't poisonous as far as just fermentation in of itself. Now, what you ferment is going to be like obviously the difference. I mean, if you drink a lot of alcoholic products and you obviously, you know, and you have issues, yeah, you're going to then cause more acid and more cancer, disease, and chronic illness. So alcohol has been known to cause cancer or contribute to the environment to then support cancer. Okay, but we're not fermenting sugar. Okay, we're fermenting cabbage and kale with pink Himalayan salt. So this is a very healthy, this is basically like sauerkraut. It's basically liquefied sauerkraut. When it all comes down to it, it's liquefied sauerkraut. Very, very juicy. Okay, so with that said, then how, and then when people were wondering, well, why is it that we're getting all these different symptoms from the Jilly juice? Why is all this stuff coming to surface? What is going on? I mean, your Jilly juice is causing all of these different symptoms, sickness and pain. And that's what Dr. Phil was their whole basis point is like, oh, the Jilly juice is going to harm you and it's going to cause all these things. And, you know, and they characterize it as a very major negative. They characterize it as something that's going to harm you. They're all worried about the salt, as if salt was the only component. And it was just, you know, it was kind of crazy. And then I defended, you know, the Jilly juice protocol at that time the best I could with the information I had. Okay, so when I was trying to explain why the symptoms came to surface, and when the industry and people and the holistic and myself, when anyone doesn't know connections between relationships between things, they compartmentalize. And I'm saying like they because it happens. You see it in the allopathic holistic industry. They compartmentalize your 11 different systems as if they weren't connected. That's where the drug market comes from. That's where all the different remedies come from. It comes from a context, a compartmentalization of a whole to try to manage symptoms, manage sickness, because they haven't figured out how to stop it and why it happens. And so the only thing they know how to do is compartmentalize and try to isolate that region. But then what happens is then when they do that, then you have the side effects, which means that other systems get affected. And that's called side effects. Okay. And so, but they still do not know why it is people are in pain. I mean, they say, yeah, okay, it's the environment, it's this and that, but they haven't really figured out the root cause of why people are degrading. All they're doing is just managing the symptoms. Okay. So when they compartmentalize, it's no different than when, you know, so when you compartmentalize the pain and compartmentalize the remedies and you compartmentalize ideas about how to manage the pain, and now you're dealing with trillions and trillions and trillions of perspectives. Okay. When it comes down to it, we're dealing with 7 billion perspectives on how to manage pain, what life is, why people get sick. I mean, because there's about 7 billion people on the planet and they all have their own perspective on stuff. And yes, some may have groups of similar perspectives because of similar biochemistry, but they're still compartmentalizing. Okay. Thank you, Dusty Lynn. And so, okay, so now we understand that so that's how, and that's also too, when you think about compartmentalizing, it's also the same word is called context. Okay. And so when I'm trying to characterize the healing symptoms, trying to separate myself from the medical holistic industry, I have to then create words to put together to show that it's separate, because I don't want someone characterizing the J juice as something that needs a remedy, that needs some kind of medical intervention. Because that's what I deal with, because I hadn't figured out how to explain the connections, because I'm trying to separate myself, which I am separate from the medical holistic. But maybe medical holistic has mischaracterized pain and mischaracterized symptoms. And now we have to go and correct their mischaracterization and then show the hypocrisy. But first, I have to compartmentalize, because that's how I can separate myself and isolate and figure out. And because if you don't separate yourself and isolate and figure out, just like when you're fighting with somebody, if you don't walk away from the fight, then you get distracted and feed back and forth into the crap, and then you don't get like a relief of just a breather to now go and collect your thoughts. Well, that's the same thing with the J juice world. When I kind of compartmentalize and call the symptoms healing symptoms, and then pain and symptoms are really actually the same thing. When you have so many different words that have the same meaning, that are explaining the same thing, okay, it's based upon the context. But what does that context do? It shows division, like in, as just a byproduct. It creates division, and then it doesn't show relationship. It actually compartmentalizes as if everything is separate, and it's not. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let me read your thing. Totally not poisonous, no division, and they would know if they would read you. Keep repeating yourself because they. Thank you. Okay, I was reading your thing, Dusty Lamb. Okay, so symptoms, okay, is something that is good. Okay, because we know that it's not poisonous, and somebody gets symptoms. So if you're taking something that's not poisonous and you're getting symptoms, that's the conundrum people are dealing with. No different than you take a vaccine that's supposed to make you sick or acclimate, right? But yet you have a remedy. That's the confusion in the allopathic holistic world. Well, you're supposed to get sick, but you're not supposed to get sick. And then you have to take a remedy because you don't want to get sick. And so that's the conflict, because people don't realize that symptoms overall is the body desperately trying to heal. Okay, now we have universal things that we know are poisonous. You're not supposed to drink Drano. You're not supposed to take anything that's not FDA approved for consumption, and they will say do not eat. This is not for consumption. So that should tell you that it's not for consumption. Okay, so if we know that the J juice is not poisonous and you get symptoms, there's something else going on in the background, and that's where the confusion lays within. Now you have to realize, what are symptoms? Universally, what are symptoms? The body is trying to heal. That's it. The body is trying to heal, and it's trying to acclimate, and it's trying to heal. Okay, and so I'm going through the lines of streams of thought. When you watch my Facebook, you'll see the ideas that come to my head, and I'll start with one idea that's totally fresh and new, and then you see me build on that and build on that. And that's why you have to follow me closely, because those are not following me closely. They jump in the middle and they have no idea where the hell I am, and then they start repeating stuff from 2 or 3 months ago, and they have no idea where I'm at. And then I get mad because they're overstepping boundaries. And I say, don't send me videos, don't send me private messages on things that I already know, and they do that, and then I have to block them because they're not following closely. They're just jumping in whenever, and that's what they do, and they're not even doing the J juice. So I get kind of annoyed at that. So hold on. Because you got to follow my thought process, because you're seeing it develop in actual real time. Okay? So right after I did the video about 6 living generations with 3 overlapping with 3, okay, what used to not be poisonous now make people more sensitive to the elements. And then I talk about the context of what poison, toxin, toxic, pollution, allergy, and bias perspective. So then I go into the whole bias perspectives, because we're always injecting our biases into everything that we do. So then I wrote, if you characterize something good or bad, that's an obvious bias based upon your belief system. Okay? So when someone says, oh, so there's a word called mutation. Now, I used to characterize mutation as something bad, as something negative, pejorative, I guess, and how I used it would kind of come off like a pejorative, negative. But a mutation is not a bad thing. There's mutagenesis, which is basically where you are evolving. So mutations can actually evolve a human race or a being into something that is stronger and better. And then you can have a mutation where it devolves somebody to where now they are lacking some of the skill sets that they could have had if they didn't undergo that extreme upset of homeostasis. Okay? And you can say that cancer, disease, and chronic illness is a de-evolution. Anything that you get diagnosed with is a type of de-evolution, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Okay? So if you characterize something as good or bad, that's an obvious bias based upon your belief system. So that's based upon context. When you have biases, you're living within a context that is based upon only your perception, and you may have others that have a similar perception, but doesn't mean that it's true. It just means that you're coming from a very specific perspective that is really only like special to you. No one else really knows exactly, because there is no one person that's exactly the same like the other. Even twins, okay, aren't exactly the same. Okay? So when you characterize anything that's good or bad, now you're inserting your biases, and people do it automatically. And so now when you start doing the J juice and you keep doing and you do it, your biochemistry is going to change, and you're going to start picking up on the biases that are out there, and you're going to start picking up on all the different contexts and the division, and it's going to trigger you, because it has triggered me to where I'm not going to go and troll someone's page, okay? But if someone like sad faces one of my posts, and I know this person, I know their background, I know their belief system, I know their politics, I went and exercised my brain yesterday debating with the person who did that. And you may see that string of comments. You may not. 63 comments on that one. It's a lot of comments. So anyways, so if you care about something good or bad, that's an obvious bias based upon your belief system. So context equals bias. Okay? So John Oakes, chill out for a minute. Let me talk about this stuff, okay? I know you're excited, and I get it, and I completely appreciate it, but let me just get through this without people inserting their stuff. And if there is no context around it that I know of, I don't want to have to figure out where you're coming from, okay? So just chill out and just listen to this for a minute, okay? So context equals bias, all right? And then bias equals brainwashing, okay? So biases are based, because no one is born in a vacuum. Something has told to somebody, and then you've adopted it as if it was the truth. And then you have people that are just like you reinforcing your said truths, okay? So then context negates connectivity. No worries, John. It's been a while since you've been on my Facebook, so you're not exactly totally hip on all the things that I'm doing, but no worries. You're going to catch up. But context negates connectivity, okay? So when you live in a context, it then makes you feel that it's separate from somebody else or something else. And then you start looking for the differences. And this is why we have so much division, so much activism, so much politics, so many different religions, so many different perspectives, because everybody is living in their own little separate bubble of a context, and they don't see the relationship or the common ground between somebody else. And so then when you are like pro this and then anti this, you're actually working from two sides of the same coin, okay? But people don't realize that. So what context does, it negates the connectivity, and then humans pick up arms against other humans because of these really quick inserting of their biases. So then context supports hypocrisy. Okay? Context supports hypocrisy. So what do I mean by that is because you could say, oh yeah, I'm a well-balanced person. See, this is the thing where I notice now with the J juice, when you are well-balanced, it's not just something that you pay lip service to, because some say, oh yeah, I'm well-balanced, but they're taking a side. They're actually picking a side and saying, well, spirituality is so much better than organized religion. And because they just are, you know, they're this and they're that. And I'm like, spirituality is no different than organized religion. It's just a different word for the same thing. Someone told you a set of rules, a set of way to be, and then you are imposing and saying that your way is the right way, the only way, and then you become hypocritical. So if you live in the world of spirituality and you hate religion, you're living in a context that supports your hypocrisy. And it's very easy to call somebody out on their hypocrisy because they take a side against something. They don't understand why it exists or that there's a similarity, because here's the thing, that this is where you have to understand where you have to take a side. Okay, now I'm gonna insert something that's gonna build upon this. Okay, there are two absolutes in life and death. Okay, those are the only two absolutes. And so when you're born to then when you keep living, it doesn't really matter what you do between when you're born and you keep living, as long as your outlook and your whole intention is to stay living indefinitely, not with some expiration date somewhere out there in the future. Okay, because that's really what is causing people to die in our society, is their belief system that they should die. Okay, so life, okay, so how do I say this? So those are the only two absolutes, life and death. If the end result is death, it won't matter what you do between when you're born and when you die. You could change your diet, you can do all these remedies, you can get all these different immunotherapies, but it still is not going to matter. When it's your time, because you're not going to put in the rules that will support life. And that's what it is. But there's two laws that have to be met. The law of life and the law of death. Okay? And so when we compartmentalize all the different ways of death, but everyone wants to say that they want to live, but they're actually believing they should die, that's what I'm saying, that context supports hypocrisy. Because if you believe you should die, then why would it matter if you have a diet, or if you need to go and exercise, or you have to go, and do this and that? I mean, those are the two absolutes. So if you believe in death, then don't worry about it. And that's the thing with someone that says, I believe in spirituality over religion. And then you really ask them, well, do you believe people should die? And they're like, yeah, everyone should die. Everyone dies. People die. That's just part of life. I'm like, okay, well, that's the same thing that this religious person who's Catholic, they believe in death too. So then where is the difference between the two? Why are you denigrating them when you have the same absolute belief system? It doesn't matter how it gets manifested, but if you believe that people should die no matter what, then you actually have something in common. And I don't know why you would then condemn them for how they roll out the death process. But that's the thing and that's what J Juice has given me, a different perspective and a different outlook, and then another option aside death as the outcome. Okay, J Juice has given us another option aside from death as the outcome. And so the thing with the healing symptoms and pain and sickness, because those are three words for the body trying to adapt. Okay, but why is death the outcome when you have all these different symptoms? Because the people aren't following the laws of life. So no matter what, wherever you're at, whatever you bring to the table, if you have symptoms, it means the body is trying to adapt to an environment and you're not giving what it needs. And then you already believe you should die anyways. And so that's why people are so afraid to die when they deal with symptoms, because that's always been the correlation equals causation type of context or concept. Okay, so now we're introducing another idea, now not another context, because no matter what, the body is going to go through symptoms when it's trying to heal. And so no matter what, so when I was saying that these are healing symptoms, well, they're just symptoms. It's just pain, it's just sickness, but that's just the body trying to heal. There's no right or wrong with it. It's what is. But the context of the allopathic holistic world, that it's a bad sickness, it's a bad pain, it's a bad symptom. Okay? And so then people then will then deal with those bad things in a particular way. And they will do drugs, and they will do alcohol, and they'll do sex, and do all these different things to then try to anesthetize them to deal with that pain. Okay? And so now I have to articulate that pain, sickness, and symptoms is the body trying to heal, and you're just not letting it. And that's it. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just what it is. Now you have to say, okay, what is it in my life that I'm doing to cause me to be in all this pain to where I'm so afraid of the outcome? Well, if you're following people that are aging and degrading, or you're following protocols of people that have died in the past, that's where you're going to end up, and that's where the fear comes from. So that's what this thing with context then supports hypocrisy, because people say, oh, I want to live, I think life is so great, but yet they, allow babies to live, but they allow grandma to die. They do all these different diets and regimes and exercise things because they want to live, but in the end, it actually does them in. And then when you look closer, the exercise and the pot and the drugs and all the different things are actually degrading them even more. So then it creates then an already just automatic hypocrisy. Okay? So context supports hypocrisy. All right. And then context gives you the illusion of time. Time is context. It equals a bias. If we didn't have clocks, if we didn't have schedules, if we didn't have any of those things that cause us to hurry up or be on time or do this, we would just be living and dying. If we didn't have modern medicine or any kind of social construct, and all we had is just, we closed our mouths and we were just taught, if we didn't communicate through language, and all we did was just eat the food, poop, take a shower, and make sure that we have a roof over our head and food on the table. But we didn't allow modern medicine to come in and manipulate. We didn't have any remedies. So no remedies, no modern medicine, no immunotherapies, no anything, okay? We would then be at the behest of Mother Nature. And either you would live and you'd watch the sun come up and watch the sun go down. It would be night, it would be cold in one region, it'd be warm in another region, and we wouldn't have this concept of time. And so either, you when you contract cancer, you would die as soon as it got a hold of you. You wouldn't be going for chemotherapy, you wouldn't be going for immunotherapy or some kind of cannabis, nothing. It would be straight up Mother Nature aggressive at her best, okay? But time now is based upon, it's a construct, okay? And the context gives you the illusion of time. When someone says, hey, I'm going to go do this chemotherapy, well, they're like, hey, yeah, you could potentially have 5 years after chemotherapy, but then you know what? You could potentially have even 1 year or less than that. And so it's like these contexts gives you the illusion that you have all this time, but you may not have any time at all based upon what you bring to the table. So time is a context, and it equals a bias, because now you're inserting your politics, your perception of your remedies as if everyone is going to have 5 or 10 years after they receive their chemotherapy. Okay? And this is the thing, context allows people to be hypocritical in their politics and be okay with it. And this is where there's like 52 comments. Because, when I'm reading my friends' Facebook and they claim to be all peaceful and love, 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 And then they go and completely condemn someone that is in an organized religion. Okay, we have Jehovah's Witnesses, we have Christians, we have Catholics, we have Jewish people, we have Muslims. Okay? And how they manifest their religion is based upon their biochemistry. Because if, not all religions are just, it's really what I've characterized religion is equal life and death. That's what religion is how people characterize life and death. And it's then funneled through their belief system, their religion, or their spirituality. So when someone believes in heaven or nirvana or the afterlife, it's no different than someone that says, I want to go and ascension artists, as I would say. No different than someone says, oh yes, we're going to leave this earth and go to some other, I don't know, time and space. So really, you're not that different. Okay. Now, if someone believes in life, in indefinite life, and the body, mind, and spirit be completely aligned, and they happen to be Catholic, and they happen to be Christian, and they happen to be Muslim, and they happen to be Jewish, and they happen to be a spiritual person, and you both are Jehovah's Witness, and you both believe that people should live indefinitely, body, mind, and spirit, then who cares if you call it Christianity, religion, spirituality, whatever. Because I know there are some Catholics out there that believe that they should live, that they should live indefinitely. So then where's the difference? Oh, it's the name. Because you can be just as organized in the death process in the spiritual world as somebody can be just as organized in the death process in the religious world. And then it's based upon the biochemistry, because there's some people that will revise their religion and they call it Reform Judaism. There's like the old world Judaism, the conservatives, the Orthodox, and then you have Reform Jews. Okay? And I came from a Reformed Jewish household. We weren't Orthodox. We weren't even conservative. I remember going to different temples as a kid. My parents were trying to try out different temples, and finally we ended up at one temple that was very, very Reform. Because they didn't want to have that legalistic pounding of this, because it was too restrictive. We had bacon as kids, okay? All right? And bacon is not, part of the Jewish religion. We mix meat and milk. So we weren't keeping kosher in our household, but that's the conservative. Okay? So you can have different offshoots of the same religion based upon how much you're willing to practice. And then you have people that are like, oh God, you're not a real true Jewish person if you're Reformed. The only true Jewish person is someone that's Orthodox or conservative. And then you have that. Okay? But no matter what, if your belief system that people should live, body, mind, and spirit, everything aligned indefinitely, reverse the aging process, all that stuff, then there really is no difference. You can be Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, Christian, and still believe that people should live indefinitely. And then there you go. That's the common ground you work from. Forget the skin color, forget the religion, forget even the politics. That's the common ground. Okay? So that was something that I really needed to glean out. And my friend, I've known her for a while, ever since way back in, oh my God, the 1990s, okay? Or 2000s, early 2000s. And so I knew her politics. And so she was great. I'll tell you what, very, very diplomatic young lady. And she's about my age. So, but she stayed with the conversation. She stayed with it. And I was calling around him some stuff. I'm like, hey, you claim to be this way. And you say, oh yeah, I'm this way. And then I find something that's totally different. I screenshot something that was on her Facebook. And she's like, oh, because yeah, you'll see people say, yeah, oh, I'm well balanced. Let me go back to that. When someone says, yeah, I'm so well balanced. And then they're taking a side. No, when you take a side against anything, no matter what, that shows that you have an imbalance, because you don't have tolerance. You're not really understanding that person's perspective and walking in their shoes. And then also, if you can't really, if you cannot effectively debate another person's point of view and have them buy it and convince them of the opposite point of view that you have, then you don't understand and you're not well balanced. And that's what we're seeing in our societies, where they can't even defend their opponents position effectively. Okay, because I played both sides. Okay, I played the anti-vax world. I have a book that shows that I was anti-vax, demonizing soy, demonizing all these different foods that I thought was poisonous. Okay, so you can see me, you know, defending my thought process at the time, and then now I'm completely the opposite. There is no food that's poisonous. Food is food. Vaccines are not bad. If you get symptoms from a vaccine, you got weaknesses. It's not that the vaccine did it. You just came into the table with weaknesses, and the body is trying to adjust to a new environment. No different than when you go outside and you're exposed to someone with the same virus. Okay, you're going to get sick. And that's the whole point of the chicken pox parties and the measles parties. They want to expose their kids to the sickness in their environment. So they're taking a vaccine, but actually it's far more dangerous to expose a kid to a measles party than taking an actual controlled virus injection through a vaccine. But that's not the purview of these people. So they don't understand both sides, and they don't realize they're actually working on the same side. They already have the commonality, but they don't understand that because they're living in their little context. And then it causes them to be hypocritical, and they don't even know it. They're like, oh my God, you know, or they're like, oh yeah, you know, the measles the measles virus can kill off cancer. So you should get the measles. Well, duh, that's what's in the vaccines. Those are the cancer vaccines. They have the measles virus in the vaccines to deal with cancer, and then they shut up because they're like, oh yeah, duh, okay. So, you know, when you have a context and you have a bias, it causes you to be hypocritical at some point. Okay? So, hold on a second. Okay, so context allows people to be hypocritical in their politics and be okay with it. So then I said symptoms overall, your body is trying to desperately heal. Trying to. Any symptom. And I don't care. I mean, here's the thing. We already know there's universal poisons out there. Don't be drinking Drano. Don't be drinking, you know, bleach. Okay, so anything that's FDA approved or it's a probiotic and you get symptoms, it means that you got weaknesses that your body is trying to manage. Whenever you eat like a food that you're allergic to, like a tomato, your body has a weakness that it's trying to heal. Okay, and so you know, so then you have like the vaccine industry, right? That, and it's not supposed to make you well. It's supposed to help you adapt to your environment, and then how you react to that adaptation is based upon the state of your body. And so they're like, oh, get your vaccine, and then people get sick, and they get all these different adverse reactions. And then we have the remedies market that is then touted by the same office that's giving you the vaccine. So when you have two different contexts of the remedies and the vaccine, okay, and the remedies are still in the allopathic, the prescription drugs, you know, the holistic side, and then you have then the, you know, all the different immunotherapies and the prescription drugs and the vaccines and all the different manipulations that cause people to have these adverse reactions. You're seeing now the hypocrisy. So these are two different contexts, I would say, people would characterize, but they are the same. The body's still trying to heal, and it's not that the vaccines and the prescription drugs are causing their issues. The person just has weaknesses that they're not willing to give their body what it needs. And so when they manipulate their body with prescription drugs or with detoxes or with I don't know, minerals and herbs and all that stuff, it just causes more weaknesses because they're not giving the proper chemistry to the body. So that's why you see a continuous chronic pain, and then an endless remedies, endless supplements, endless detoxes, endless exercise regimes until the person passes away. So they'll be in chronic pain until they pass away, because they have allowed the context to compartmentalize what they should be actually seeing the connections. Symptoms are symptoms. And so now I've bridged. So then we have, then here's this other thing. Oh, that's right. And then there's the other thing that I noticed. And this is what I was talking about with Kevin about analogies. So here you go. All right, I'm not going to read that. Okay. All right, I'll just go through all this. Just I don't want to skip all this. Okay. So then I said, I'll get to that point later. So when I said context allows a lot of people to become hypocritical, now you have to understand that it's either all dangerous or it's either all healthy, and then how your body reacts is based upon the state of your internal universe and the body trying to heal. And so correlation does not mean causation unless you're working with the absolute of life and death, with certain chemical processes that support life with specific intention, and then certain chemical processes that support death with a specific intention. Then the outcome is based upon the state of the body. Yeah, that's a lot. But there are two absolutes, life and death. Okay? What you do in between your belief system, it doesn't matter if the outcome is going to be what, the outcome is going to be the same. If you believe in life, then you better have everything then be characterized and be congruent with life. Okay? So grandma should not be dying. If you're a pro-lifer, you're like, oh, I'm anti-abortion, pro-life, and then you allow grandma to die, that shows the hypocrisy right there. Okay? So no matter what, if you turn to holistic and the allopathic world, you have a very weak body. And if you are afraid of vaccines as well as meat, you have a very weak body. Period, point blank, end of story. Then I said, if you follow the protocols and the fears of people who have died in the past, then you know they have been managing their symptoms with all the protocols and the fears that support the absolute death outcome. Okay? So if you want to live, but yet you follow people who have died, that's the hypocrisy I'm talking about. When you use the word context to justify why they can violate a law in one context and then completely follow the law in another context. So, if you're allowing grandma to die, but yet you want to, take in, vegetables and fermentation to live, already right there is a very obvious hypocrisy. You can't have both. It's one or the other. So people will say one thing, but then their actions say another. And that's what you have to actually follow is people's actions. Oh, I'm on the Julie juice. I'm on the Julie juice. I'm so well balanced. And then they're an activist. They're holding a bias. They're not well balanced. So I laugh when someone says, oh yeah, it's all about maintaining balance, all about balance, and they're on the keto diet. They're demonizing, foods. And they're all about, yeah, it's all about maintaining balance. Well, you ain't maintaining balance if you are on these different diets and you are, bringing in therapies and bringing in doctors and all these different things, because they compartmentalize. They're not bringing in the system as a whole. They're compartmentalizing and then basically touting context to justify them violating the laws of life. And then people buy into it and they say, oh yeah, I'm well balanced. No, you're not. Okay. So they said every single belief system you hold is a type of bias that if you deny you are biased, then you will be hypocritical. And at some point, it's just a matter of when, not if. So I am biased towards life. I worry about my own life first, because if you don't worry about your own life, how the hell can you worry about your own dog or your husband or wife or your child? Just like when you're on an airplane and they do the whole safety routine, you put your mask on first, then you help your child. Because no point in helping your child if you're not alive or you're passed out because you don't have oxygen coming to you. Well, that's the same thing. I am biased towards life. I believe in life. First, it's me. And if someone comes at me with a knife or a gun, guess what? It's not going to be me dying. It's going to be them dying. So when I talk about pro-life, I want myself to live first. And all of you should have that same reality. You don't want that robber or that murderer to live before you. Why would you want to die? Okay? And so that's the same thing. So when you are pro-life, you want life for yourself, life for your animals and your dependents, and then life for humanity. And if someone comes at you with something that is deadly, whether it's deadly to the body, mind, and spirit, then you will act accordingly. And it doesn't always come down to, you know, hand-to-hand combat. I mean, that's the extreme, the fears that people have out there. That's why we have the whole thing with the Second Amendment. But things do happen. I mean, you see it in our society. People get robbed by people. You know, kids go and do stupid stuff. So you have to make sure you protect yourself and understand the realities of our society and do what you have to do to protect yourself. And if it means that other person, I mean, you don't want to go to that point. And I'll tell you, I've never been to that point where I had to have, or I was faced with that. And I would never put myself in a position to be faced with that. But if it ever came to that, it would be me living, not the other person, if it came to that. But I would never actively go look for that situation. And I wouldn't have the type of people in my life to put me in that position of that situation. Okay? So yes, you acknowledge your bias. You want you to live, you want your dog to live, you want your kids to live, and you want your husband to live, but you know that your husband and your kids are going to have their own mind, but the dog is your dependent. They depend upon you. Your dog should be living as long as you're living. And if your dog dies before you die, then you're not giving the dog what it needs to keep living. And when you have a dog, it's a lifetime commitment. Okay? Or then you become hypocritical. And that's a hard thing, but I understand everybody wants to have that responsibility of having an animal, but when you take on an animal, it's a lifetime thing. And if you know that you have a life-giving protocol that keeps your dog alive, why would you want your dog to suffer and die? But people do. Okay. So yeah, that's what I say about, you know, I'm very biased towards my own life and humanity's life, and I can substantiate it. And it will be consistent in every aspect of my life. The priority is me, my life, then my family, and then the rest of the world who also is promoting life in a very consistent form, not a political form. Okay? Oh, and then I wrote something about it. So it's the foundation of which religion, belief, and politics is set from, is what differentiates, not the religion, belief, politics itself. So if you are set from a life perspective and you happen to be Democrat, Republican, Catholic, Christian, Jewish, that's fine. As long as the ultimate outcome, the absolute outcome is life or death. But here's the thing, nobody wants to die and nobody's trying to promote death. So ultimately everybody wants to live. So no matter what, you know, you're all hypocritical if you believe people should die at some point. Okay? All right. So once you admit you are biased, now you have to explore why are you biased, and it has to follow either under life or death. And even then your biases may not actually be consistent with your belief system of what is promoting life and what is promoting death. Because yeah, I mean, if you think people should die, if you think it's okay to grandma to die, it's okay that people should die at some point, then yeah, then your whole thing of being on pro-life makes you hypocritical. Okay? And then someone tried to debate with me, say, oh yeah, well, it's going to work against you. They can use that against you. No, because there are absolutes in life and death. Okay? And so just chew on this. Now, this is where, and he wanted to keep this guy, Dermot, whatever, wanted to keep going back and forth with me. And I'm like, dude, it's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm tired. I already went back with someone, 53 comments prior. I'm not going to do 60, 50, 100,000 comments with this person. Wait for my video tomorrow. I'll explain it all. And if you don't understand it, then I'm sorry, I can't make you understand it. So this is when I screenshot the definition of context. Okay, context. This is under a noun. Okay, the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. So yeah, the circumstances. So I mean, if you're talking about something and you didn't use jargon that's obvious, then you say, okay, yeah, I was at a baseball game and this person did this, and then my car did this. What do I do with this? And then a person, you know, when you just said, hey, my car is broken down and I'm wondering why, and they're like, okay, well, where's it broken down? Why? And then they get a whole big context of the whole situation. So then they can accurately figure out how to then rectify that situation. Okay, that's the noun context. Then you have this context. or the parts of something written or spoken that immediately precedes and follows a word or passage and clarify its meaning, good or bad. Okay? Okay? So word processing is affected by the context in which words appear. Yeah, so when you precede a word over like mutation, a good mutation versus a bad mutation, that's already showing you a context. That you have a belief system that mutations are bad, or you have a belief system that mutations are good, but all mutations are just mutations. But then is it supporting the ultimate outcome of life or death? And those are the only really two contexts. That's it. Those are absolutes, but they got to be absolutes. So you can look at, evolution and de-evolution. When you're diagnosed, no matter what, it's a de-evolution. Okay? So then I said, okay, so just chew on this. Context creates division. The only division is absolutes, life and death. That's it. Politics, religion, and the allopathic holistic world, okay? Spirituality, automotive, sports, art, corporations, classes, holistic, allopathic, you name it. I mean, knitting to plumbing. Those are all contexts that all are connected. And this is why analogies work well to help bridge the gap between all of those different things. So people can be like, oh, I'm all spiritual, and then they don't understand the automotive. Well, it's really the same thing in their spirituality, but they just have different words with different mechanisms, different things to put together, but still the same thing. It's still, there's a beginning, middle, and an end. So let me get to that point. Well, hold on. Okay, yeah. Here we go. This is the last thing that I said. Okay. There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end based upon the laws that are applied regardless of the context. So they're like, well, if there's always an end, then why do you say then there's indefinite life? Because for you to live, somebody had to have some kind of breakdown in their body to then trigger reproduction, which then created you. Because there had to be some kind of death in some way, not like an overall, like a person dying, because you can have parents that are doing the J-juice, and then they had you as their offspring, and they're doing the J-juice, and they're continuously living, and then so are you, and then now you are just like them. You've either both the same, age telomere wise, not so much chronological social construct, but when you look at your telomeres, they're exactly the same length, exactly the same. Okay. And so that's the only measurement of just, the similarities when someone actually does the J-juice protocol, like their parents, they both have the same length of telomeres. Okay. So, but somehow something had to mutate or die, because soil cells always die and then they regenerate and they die and regenerate. But reproduction comes from the splitting of the cells. The body is now releasing and taking from you, and you're seeing parts of the body die, but then, sometimes they get regenerated. But then you see people who have bore a lot of children and you're seeing parts of their system dying. That's the aging process. Okay, so reproduction comes from the aging process, the systematic degradation of the body, which then will trigger mitigation of extinction, and that's where reproduction comes from. Okay, so there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you can't have a middle without a beginning or an ending. You can't, either one. You have to have a beginning, middle, or an end, no matter what. It doesn't have to be an ultimate end as far as the ultimate person. You can have certain things in the body die, but then the body regenerates. Okay. So regeneration comes from degeneration. They beget each other. But I would rather live in regeneration mode than degeneration mode, because then ultimately the body dies. Okay? So when you have like all of those different contexts, you start seeing the similarities, and that's where I tell, Kevin and myself, that's why analogies are the most important thing, because it bridges the gap between all the different contexts, the division. Okay, analogies are the best way to get your point across, so that way you can then bridge that brainwashing somebody else where they're stuck in their little compartmentalization of their context and they don't see the relationship, and then you start then giving them analogies in another way, and then they start seeing their relationship. I mean, when you look at piping, just looking at piping, my husband, I was trying to learn how to pipe in this trailer, like years back when we were on that trailer park compound, and I'm like, I'm gonna learn piping. I'm gonna go to Home Depot. They're gonna give me a whole lesson on piping, and I'm gonna help you then lay pipe under this trailer. And it's a lot. I mean, no, it's not easy. you can't just learn how to plumb and lay piping in a trailer from Home Depot. But I was in that. But when you look at the piping and you look at how everything is connected, that's the same thing as the human body. There's different piping, and when there's a leak or when there's a I don't know, an anomaly, or or there's decay, you have to go and replace it or regenerate it in the body. Okay, so how a house is working to make it healthy for the human is you have to clear the pipes. You can't have backups, or you're going to have poop coming out your toilet all over your floor. Then you're living in filth. Okay, so you have to clean the pipes in your body, or you're going to be sitting in filth. Okay, and then it's causing then anomalies and then degradation. So when you're utilizing analogies, it bridges the gap between all the different contexts. And so no matter what, when you actually debate somebody on, hey, everyone is related, you don't need to be denigrating or condemning anybody, whether it's a Muslim or a spiritual person or a Jewish person or a Democrat or Republican or whoever. Okay, we're all connected, but the only difference is, do you believe in life or do you believe in death? I think everybody that's watching right now believes in life. So how do you have then your whole life be consistent with your belief system? Those that are anti-vax and anti-this and anti-that, they want to live, but then they have these practices that actually cater to the death process. That's the hypocrisy that is all over the world. And then you see the evidence all over Facebook, because people's information doesn't lie. When someone says, oh yeah, I'm so healthy, and they are degrading and they're aging and they're balding and they're narrow and they get triggered easily all the time, they're not healthy. But they'll say they're healthy, but then you look at their life and they're not. And that's that's what I'm saying, where you have to look at the absolutes of life and death. Anything else is just distraction. And so these are the things that I've been noticing through my journey with J-Juice, peeling back the layers and then articulating it. So you guys, do the J-Juice, up the levels occasionally. Do 3/4 of a gallon in like one sitting, in an hour or less. Get to that next level, because I'm telling you, the revelations that you have are going to be amazing. And then you'll learn how to articulate them. And that's fine, John. Do what you got to do. Nice to see you. Okay? So you guys, just do the J-Juice, because I'm telling you, once you get to that level to where you actually dealt with the body, and then your mind is shifting, and then your spirit, your biochemistry is now finally aligned with the body and the mind, you're going to have so many different worlds open up to you that you don't even know. And it's going to, then you start getting where I'm coming from. Then you start seeing the hypocrisy of everything. And then you take yourself out of the war. You take yourself out of the battles, because there really isn't a battle. You're just fighting yourself. Okay? Because anytime that you have an opposition, that you don't like someone's religion, you don't like their belief system, you don't like this, you really don't like the parts of yourself. And that's why I'm saying, when I see people say stuff, I get triggered, because I see that in myself and I want to now go and correct it. And I'm not going to go on someone's Facebook and then just completely like troll them and challenge them. But if they're going to go on my Facebook and they sad face or angry face something that I know isn't really sad or should be angry, I'm then going to then invite them into a discussion diplomatically. Okay? But I don't always respond to every battle that's put in front of me. I might go back and forth for a bit, and then I might say, okay, I'm not going to debate this, watch my video tomorrow. And if they keep going on, that's when I block people. So yeah, so hopefully this has been clear to you. But those of you that are just joining, just go back to the beginning and watch this, because yeah, I mean, when you start seeing that the atheists and the religious and the Muslims and the Jews and the Democrats and the Republicans, we're all basically the same. Okay, we all want to live, but yet we are now hypocritical because we're allowing our body to decay. We want babies to be alive, but we're allowing grandma to die. Okay? And so you can see the hypocrisy in all religions, in all politics, in all spirituality. If when someone says, I want to live, but they're allowing death to happen to not only themselves, but their own family as well. And it's not just about the babies. It's really about grandma. Okay? Because grandma really is you degrading. I mean, that's when you look at the different generations, that's basically you watching yourself. When you look at your grandma dying, you're looking at yourself dying. Okay? And so this is where we're now try to get people to be consistent in their beliefs. If you're pro-life, then you got to follow it from point A to point Z, and the priority is you, then your dependence, and then humanity. Okay? And that's the whole point of the J juice, is to keep you consistent with your belief system. If you believe in life, if you believe in death, then it doesn't matter when you die. Okay? So that's why I got away from the activism. That's why I got away from all of the politics, because we're all looking to live, but I mean, I'm just taking care of myself, making sure I live, make sure my dog lives, and then give opportunities to my husband to live if he wants to, but then allowing him to have a different belief system. If he believes that people should die, then I'll let him do what he has to do, and I'll make his life as comfortable as possible on his way out. But then maybe he might change his mind, because as you get closer to death, it's not fun dying. The death process is chaotic. People say, oh yeah, I believe in life, but they allow their bodies to decay. Sometimes it gets worse. And then you're like, holy crap, maybe I really want to have my youth back. Maybe I do want to have motion or movement in my back or my arms or my legs or whatever that may have been stagnated due to muscle pain and other stuff. Okay, so as people degrade faster and faster in the system, their belief systems and their politics change. Just look at Kanye West and look at Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is now from an atheist to now someone that believes in God after alcoholism, because he now wants to live. But, he's not going to, I don't think he's ever introduced to the Jilly Juice, so he'll just go through the motions of now negotiating his place on this earth and then come to terms with the afterlife. That's his belief system. Kanye West, same thing. He went from being, I don't know, a singer or whatever to now leading a church. And that's the same thing too with what's his name, MC Hammer. He was like, some rapper way back when, and then turned into some kind of pastor or something. So yeah, so religion equals life, but then even religion can be hypocritical. Spirituality, religion, or your relationship with God, okay? Because really, when you think about it, body, mind, and spirit living indefinitely, not watching a body decay. If you're pro-life, that means everything is pro-life, not just bits and pieces. It's everything, because everything is connected. It's when people have these contexts that justifies the hypocrisy. Oh, it's okay for grandma to die, but we can't let a baby die. That's what I mean by hypocrisy. And that's what context does. It allows people to justify their hypocritical points of view and then be okay with it. And then it justifies the wars, and it justifies people condemning each other and then dividing each other and all that. So anyways, that's all I got to say, but hopefully this makes sense, and just think about it. Okay, bye.